ENL102 students. Welcome to week 8. Take a deep breath. You are at the halfway point. Next week is spring break. I really hope that you guys take time to relax and just focus on what you need to focus on and not worry about this class, because I'm not expecting you to do anything over spring break. So, welcome to my mobile office. I am clearly in my car, and I have some time that I want to just chat with you guys. So, I did not get to do a lecture or an intro for week 7 because, like I said in my little announcement, that my family had the plague over the weekend, the last weekend in February, and it was rough. And then we had 2 snow days at MPC that week. Wednesday, Thursday it was closed, and I was without power at my house for like 9 hours on Thursday, and it was just a crazy series of unfortunate events. But I just wanted to let you guys know that I have looked at week 6 discussions, and I really like all that you guys put into analyzing the fairy tales. I think fairy tales are kind of fun to work with. I don't know if you guys enjoyed that. I hope you did. And how you would apply different literary lenses. I really enjoyed the conversations that happened, especially when somebody analyzed the same piece of literature that you did, and you made a comment saying, hey, I analyzed that too, but I took a different approach. And that is what I love about literature and working with literary lenses, is because there's always more than one way to look at something. So week 7, sorry, I've got my laptop right here, is poetry. And let me see if I can get this open. You pick a poem and apply some literary devices that we've learned about. So we've learned about literary devices in a couple weeks past. Like I said, we're building things, we have our foundation, and now we're actually starting to build the structure of our home and put the finishing touches on it. And I know, there are some really hard poems this week. And I think you guys are doing a fantastic job talking about different literary elements that are in there, in the poems that we're seeing. I didn't want to overdo poetry for you guys in week 7, because when I sat down and started planning out this course, there's certain outcomes that we need to meet. But then it's up to me to fill in the gaps to make sure that you reach those outcomes. And I'm like, well, we do need to talk about poetry, and we need to talk about this, and we need to talk about that. And so I feel like everything is just kind of really little tiny snippets. So I'm glad you guys seem to be enjoying doing a lot of this work. Alright, so for week 8, we are coming into fables and folk tales. And how is this different from a fairy tale? We're going to talk about that a little bit, I think, in this. But what I'm most excited to talk about are oral traditions of storytelling. So if we go way back, if you think about the epic poem Beowulf, that thing is so long, and there's a not so great movie adaptation of it, whatever. But that is something that was one of the first epic poems that were written down. And these stories, a lot of these stories that we've heard as kids and we're going back to, are things that have been told orally. And oral tradition is absolutely amazing. And let's take a look at the Dene language. And I am not as well versed in it as I should be, but I do know that it wasn't written down until recently. And recently, I mean within the last several decades. It was not written down. It was a completely oral language. And so that is why, like, they call them Navajo code talkers, and they were able to communicate with one another because that language was not written down, because it's not a well-known language, but it has such rich history and incredible stories that go along with it. And there's always something lost in translation. When we are translating something from one language to another, we can't always get the little nuances, and so little things get lost along the way. And it's really unfortunate because it can impact the overall meaning of the story and what they're trying to share. But I think that I want you to really think about oral storytelling this week. I know it's kind of, so we're doing the folk tales, we're doing the fables, and then we're talking about oral history. And so, even if we look back at minstrels that would travel around, and they would go and sing songs, and those songs were stories, and they were taught those stories. They weren't written down. They were taught by a minstrel, an older minstrel, like he was an apprentice. And they're going to put their own little spin on things so that they can keep their audience captive and keep their attention. So things can get lost along the way when it comes to oral tradition. So there are perks, and then there are things that are just like, oh, so much is missing because things got changed along the way, or we can't translate it from this language to another language just because, like, there is not a word in English to describe this word in another language. So you do not have a written assignment until week 9, so that's the week after spring break. It's going to be a literary analysis. You're going to select one of the pieces of literature that we have read in class. You can choose one of the short stories from week 9 as well. You're going to write at least 500 words in MLA format using at least 3 literary devices, addressing at least 3 literary devices the author used. You're going to use at least 1 academic source. And I think the short stories are going to be a lot of fun. So there's some really I'm trying to think of the right word, like kind of dark stories in here. The Telltale Heart and The Lottery are both kind of difficult to read. Like The Telltale Heart's creepy, but The Lottery is just gut-wrenching. So I'm looking forward to reading your papers there. I think you guys are doing fantastic. Keep up the good work. Keep collaborating with one another. Don't get the plague because it's miserable. I'm kind of hoping that we're moving out of these crazy snowstorms that keep canceling school and just throwing everybody's lives for a loop. As always, please feel free to reach out anytime. You all have my phone number in the syllabus. If you need to reach me that way, you can email me. You guys are really good about asking questions when you need to, and I appreciate that. And I think you guys are doing fantastic. And I am grateful for you all because this is fun. I am excited because we are now finally getting into the literature and analyzing literature and applying the things that we've learned. And ideally, were this an in-person class, the setup would be very different. But you guys are great. You guys are great, and I appreciate that. You guys stay safe, stay warm, stay happy.